Before the world decided to be shocked by Rwanda in 1994, the country was practically screaming for help with giant, flashing neon signs. There was a popular radio station, RTLM, whose broadcasts were less top 40 hits and more a friendly reminder that your Tutsi neighbors are cockroaches who must be crushed. This wasn't subtle. Meanwhile, international diplomats were patting themselves on the back for the Arusha Accords, a lovely piece of paper designed to force a power-sharing deal between the Hutu government and the Tutsi-led RPF rebels. It was a brilliant plan, assuming one side wasn't actively importing hundreds of thousands of machetes and training militias. The Hutu power movement had published its 10 Commandments years earlier, which basically outlined a social and political boycott of all Tutsis. But these were all just colorful local customs, apparently. Nothing to worry about. Into this simmering pot of impending doom, the United Nations sent a mission called UNAMIR, led by a Canadian general named Romo Dallaire. He was given a few thousand troops from various nations, a cool blue helmet, and a mandate so restrictive he couldn't even disarm a militia without written permission from God and the Security Council. They were observers. Their main job was to watch, take notes, and presumably report back on how creatively things were falling apart. In January 1994, Dallaire sent what is now famously known as the genocide facts. An informant told him about massive weapon caches, detailed extermination lists, and a plan to kill Belgian peacekeepers to drive the UN out. He faxed this to Kofi Annan's peacekeeping office in New York, asking for permission to raid the weapons caches. The response he got back was a masterwork of bureaucratic paralysis. Do not, under any circumstances, act. It exceeds your mandate. Truly inspiring stuff. On the evening of April 6, 1994, the presidential plane carrying Rwanda's president Habyarimana was shot out of the sky. Who did it is still debated by people who enjoy arguing. What isn't up for debate is what happened next. Within an hour, the Presidential Guard and the Interahamwe militias, armed with pre-compiled lists of names and addresses, set up roadblocks across the capital. The spontaneous eruption of ancient tribal hatreds turned out to be as spontaneous as a Swiss watch. This wasn't chaos, it was a meticulously organized extermination campaign kicking off precisely on schedule. The radio was telling people where to go, what to do, and who to kill. The efficiency would have been impressive if it weren't so utterly monstrous. This was the starting pistol for 100 days of slaughter. The international community responded to the crisis with breathtaking speed and decisiveness. They organized military operations to evacuate all white people. French, Belgian, and American troops flew in, secured the airport, and airlifted their citizens and diplomats to safety. It was a textbook extraction. Their Rwandan staff, who had begged for help and were on the death lists, were told to wait by the gate. The planes left without them. Meanwhile, the Hutu power strategists executed their brilliant plan. They murdered 10 Belgian peacekeepers. Just as they predicted, Belgium immediately pulled all its troops out, gutting the already feeble UNAMIR force. The UN Security Council, seeing a mission in crisis, then voted to reduce the remaining force to just 270 people. They removed the guards right as the wolves were tearing down the door. While bodies were piling up in churches and rivers, the world's greatest minds in New York were tied up in a very important ethical dilemma. Vocabulary. You see, if you call something genocide, the 1948 Genocide Convention legally obligates you to prevent, and to punish it. And that sounds like a lot of work. The Clinton administration famously circulated internal memos advising officials to avoid the G word. U.S. Ambassador Madeleine Albright, acting on these instructions, argued at the UN that what was happening were merely acts of genocide, but not necessarily genocide. It's like saying someone is suffering from acts of death, but isn't technically dead. For weeks, this semantic dance continued, a perfect smokescreen of legalese and diplomatic cowardice that allowed everyone to justify doing absolutely nothing while the death toll climbed into the hundreds of thousands. France's role in all of this was special. For years, the French government under François Mitterrand had been a staunch ally of the Hutu regime, providing weapons, money, and military training. They saw the government as a key part of their French-speaking sphere of influence in Africa. So when the killing started, Paris was in an awkward spot. After sitting on their hands for 2 months, they finally intervened with Operation Turquoise. It was pitched as a humanitarian mission to create a safe zone. And it did save some Tutsis. However, that same safe zone also provided a convenient escape route for thousands of the genociders, the killers, organizers, and militia leaders to flee into neighboring Zaire. They basically held the door open for the murderers to escape, regroup, and destabilize the entire Great Lakes region for the next 30 years. Mission accomplished, I guess. The global media, our brave truth-tellers, did a stellar job of explaining what was happening. At first, most outlets framed the story as a chaotic, tribal civil war, a narrative as old and tired as it is wrong. It's a convenient label that suggests an unsolvable, ancient conflict, relieving anyone from the burden of understanding or acting. The story of a modern state-sponsored extermination campaign using radio broadcasts and bureaucratic lists is far more chilling and much less exotic. With few journalists on the ground, the world saw confusing images of violence without the context of a planned genocide. It wasn't until weeks into the slaughter, when skeletal survivors and rivers clogged with bodies made the truth undeniable, that the narrative began to shift. By then, of course, most of the work of the killers was already done. After 100 days, the RPF, the Tutsi-led rebel army, finally fought its way to the capital and ended the genocide. No thanks to the UN. The final count was somewhere around 800,000 people murdered, mostly with farm tools. In the years that followed, the apology tour began. World leaders, one by one, would visit Kigali's genocide memorials and give beautifully crafted speeches full of regret. Bill Clinton, in a masterclass of political non-apologies, visited in 1998 and expressed his deep regret for not acting sooner without ever actually saying, "I'm sorry." Everyone learned valuable lessons about the importance of international will, the dangers of indifference, and the need for rapid response. These lessons have been diligently applied to all subsequent crises, which is why nothing like this has ever happened again in places like Darfur, Syria, or Yemen. Oh wait. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!